Let's start today's video out with a quote. I try to model my game after AJ Green. That's my favorite receiver in the league. I try, but if I can be my own receiver, I want to be my own receiver. AJ Green was Tee Higgins' role model, but let's go back 9 years, and Bengals fans clearly remember when they drafted wide receiver AJ Green in the first round and quarterback Andy Dalton in the second round to jumpstart a run of 5 straight playoff appearances. Flash forward to 2020, they have another franchise quarterback and a top-end wide receiver. So could the Bengals maybe even do it better this time? Joe Burrow has looked really good as of late, and the Cincinnati Bengals are rising right now. But the emergence of Tee Higgins can't be undervalued, as he's become one of the best players on the team and could be a young star in this league. But why do I think that, and how did Tee get to this point? Let's go through his entire football story and why he has so much potential. But first, be sure to subscribe to this channel, be sure to give this video a like, share it with your friends, and drop what I should do next. And now let's get started with the rise of Tee Higgins. Did you know that Tee almost didn't play football, as he actually liked basketball more? But in order to understand his entire story, we need to go way back in time. Higgins excelled on the football field and basketball court during his high school career. He was named the 2015 and 2016 Tennessee Titans Class 5A Mr. Football, and he was also a Mr. Basketball finalist in 2016 after he averaged 15 points and 6.6 rebounds. Athletics just seemed to run in the family for him, as his sister also played for Middle Tennessee basketball. It's not like he was an average basketball player either. He had scholarship offers from schools such as Louisville, Tennessee, and Auburn, meaning he could have easily played for one of those schools. And he almost chose basketball, but football was going to be more of his future, and he ended up going with that. And I think it was the right choice for him. As a senior, he caught 68 passes for 1,044 yards and 18 touchdowns. That came a season after he reeled in 46 catches for 841 yards and 16 touchdowns as a junior. He was a 5-star recruit by some sites, and he was wanted by every school in the country. It was actually assumed he was going to go to Tennessee, as he was actually committed there for a while, and they were the leader for him too. But Tee would throw a curveball to the recruiting world. He announced his commitment to Clemson in a video on Bleacher Report, and he became the best recruit in the Tigers class that year. He chose Clemson over Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida State, and Ohio State. Higgins was the headliner of the Clemson 2017 recruiting class, and he was the number 19 overall prospect according to 24/7 Sports, and he was also the number 2 wide receiver in the country. He was likely going to be an immediate factor in the offense for him, and he was just one stop away from the NFL. It was a matter of when and not if. Because of basketball, he was told he was going to need to get in the weight room and get much stronger, which is exactly what he did. He was one of 6 true freshmen expected to get playing time for the Tigers, and that is not easy. He was compared to Mike Williams when he came in, and he definitely became a star. Wide receiver DeAndre Overton said, quote, "He is a person who is going to get the ball regardless. He's a great jumper, has a lot of basketball skills, he knows how to get the ball." With starters Deion Kane and Ray McCloud departing earlier for the draft, Higgins saw an opportunity to take the starting role. He would catch 17 passes for 345 yards and 2 touchdowns as a freshman, which was a solid role, and he was expected to break out even more in 2018. With Bryant and Lawrence at quarterback, Travis Etienne and Tavian Feaster at running back, and Justin Ross at wide receiver, Clemson was going to be good. In 2018, he broke out against Texas A&M with 3 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown in one of my favorite college football games of all time. He played pretty solid over the next few weeks before a huge game against number 16 NC State, where he had 8 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown in their blowout win. He followed it up with 2 touchdowns against Florida State, and then helped them beat number 17 Boston College in a primetime game. He would have a season-high 142 receiving yards and a touchdown versus their rival South Carolina, and the perfect season kept going for the Clemson Tigers. He had 2 touchdowns against Pittsburgh in the ACC Championship game, and they were undefeated and headed to the college football playoff. He'd only go for 53 yards and a touchdown in their blowout win over number 3 Notre Dame, but they were headed to the title, so that probably really didn't matter. He'd have 81 yards and a touchdown against Alabama, and they absolutely blew the rails off the Crimson Tide, which was a shocker for everyone. As a sophomore, he would catch 59 passes for 936 yards and 12 touchdowns in their undefeated championship run. He was projected to be a big-time player in 2019, and he did that. In his first game, he'd go for 98 yards and a touchdown against Georgia Tech, but that was the Travis Etienne show. A few weeks later, he'd go for 70 yards in a win over number 12 Texas A&M. In a game against Syracuse, which seemingly always was a thorn in the side for Clemson, he'd catch 7 passes for 150 yards in their blowout win. In what was one of the best games of the 2019 season, Tee caught 6 passes for 129 yards versus North Carolina, and Sam Howell and the Heels were a 2-point conversion away from winning that game. He would continue to have big games against NC State, as he'd go for 73 yards and a touchdown versus the Wolfpack that year. He'd go for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns against their rival South Carolina again, and the Gamecocks could never stop him. He'd have his best career game in the ACC Championship, as he'd catch 9 passes for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns against the number 23 Cavaliers. Clemson would once again make it to the college football playoff, and in my favorite game of the 2019 season, he'd catch 4 passes for 33 yards against Ohio State. And as we all know, Justin Fields threw the ball away, and Clemson would advance to the title. Fortunately, Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers were too much, and T would only catch 3 passes for 52 yards, but he did have a big rushing touchdown in that game, but it wouldn't be enough, as we all know LSU won the title. As a junior, he'd catch 59 passes for 1,167 yards and 13 touchdowns. He was a first-team All-ACC member and a projected Day 1 draft pick. With no surprise to anyone, he declared for the 2020 NFL Draft. The 6'4", 215-pound Higgins was one of the most productive receivers in college football over his past 2 years, and he had great ball skills that produced 27 touchdowns in only 37 games, and that apparently made him the highest-rated player on the Bengals draft board at the end of the first round, which is no surprise because he was a first-round talent. They said, quote, "Higgins is probably the most complete big receiver we've seen come into the league in quite some time. The things you normally worry about with all the tall wideouts is their ability to get off the press. Higgins proved he could do that against 2 of the best pressed corners in the country during Clemson's playoff run. As I said earlier, for some reason he fell out of the first round, as guys like Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Reagor were selected ahead of him. He went with the 33rd overall pick by the Bengals, and he was going to be Burrow's rookie target. The team already had his idol A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, and bust John Ross, but he was expected to play. There really were no expectations for Cincinnati, and people were curious about how Higgins would do. He'd catch 3 passes for 35 yards in his first game, and then he'd go for 5 catches for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 2 against the Eagles, which made him a popular fantasy pickup. He'd have his first 100-plus yard game against the Colts, in a game that I thought my team was going to lose, but the Bengals showed that they have a lot of potential. He'd catch 5 passes for 71 yards against their rival, the Browns, and then he'd catch 6 passes for 78 yards in their latest game in an upset win over the Titans. The Bengals may not make the playoffs, and the record may show that they're terrible, but I think the Bengals are getting a lot of hype, Joe Burrow is getting really comfortable, and Tee Higgins is becoming the number 1 option for him. Boyd is still going to be the top wide receiver on the team for now, but Higgins is getting more and more snaps and reps and becoming more consistent by the week. He seems to have a really nice connection with Burrow, and that will get even stronger as the season and as the years go on. I think he'll be the best Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver in the coming years, and he'll be one of the best young stars in the league at the position as well. But what do you guys think? I always liked Tee Higgins in college, and I really do think he's going to be a difference maker these upcoming years. And I've had a lot of fun watching him develop so far this season. Before you go, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. If you love football, be sure to subscribe, comment your thoughts, and give me a suggestion for who I should do next. Share this video with all your other friends, and subscribe to my podcast and basketball channel. And also be sure to check out all my other videos while you're still here. I will definitely see you guys again soon, but until then, peace.